Today's conversation was also inspired by an Instagram post that I posted on Wednesday. I'm releasing this video on Thursday. And also to articulate the point, the effect of the unfettered mind. While I was at the gym, I came up with this inspiration, which I posted on my Instagram, which I'll link in the description. It states, "I live as I am in complete bliss." Now, in the Corpus Semiticum, it states that there were two gifts bestowed upon humanity. Those two gifts were mind and speech. Mind and speech. It also states that those two gifts are equal to immortality. And what it also states, which is not on my screen right now, is that if the individual uses these gifts wisely, they realize that they differ nothing from the immortals and attain to bliss. They attain to bliss. So, the key here is to think as applicable in relation to appearances, to purify the subconscious mind from the untrue illusory beliefs so that you can experience a fluid mind and use your mind rightly and allow God to do everything else. Here's what I mean. There is a wonderful book called The Unfettered Mind by Taekwan Soho. The Unfettered Mind, writings from a Zen master to a master swordsman. It was translated. There's one translation from William Scott Wilson. In there, he says, "The right mind is the mind that does not remain in one place. It is the mind that stretches through the entire body and self. The confused mind is the mind that, thinking something over, congeals in one place. When the right mind congeals and settles in one place, it becomes what is called the confused mind." So the confused mind is the result of identification to particular beliefs. A lot of times, dichotomous thinking-based beliefs or absolutist ways of thinking, which reveals lack of fluidity of mind, and again, no shame and condemnation. In this particular video, we talk about how to release identification to those dogmatic, illusory, rigid ways of thinking that generate suffering and stifle the flow of creativity so that the individual can experience fluidity of mind. He says, "When the right mind is lost, it is lacking in function here and there. For this reason, it is important not to lose it. In not remaining in one place, the right mind is like water. The confused mind is like ice. And ice is unable to wash hands or head. When ice is melted, it becomes water and flows everywhere. And it can wash the hands and the feet or anything else. If the mind congeals in one place and remains with one thing, it is like frozen water and is unable to be used freely. Ice that can wash neither hands nor feet. When the mind is melted and is used like water, extending throughout the body, it can be sent wherever one wants to send it." So this is very helpful for creative expressions, day-to-day life, the spiritual catalyst path of entrepreneurship, to experience fluidity of mind and live from the premise of unconditional bliss, thus experiencing fluidity of mind. We'll talk about how to do it. It also says, "The no mind is the same as the right mind. It neither congeals nor fixes itself in one place. It is called no mind when the mind has neither discrimination nor thought, but wanders about the entire body and extends throughout the entire self. So, two gifts were bestowed upon humanity to utilize to live the life that you truly desire. Mind is fundamentally pure and blissful. It is only the individual that can place in mind untrue thinking that forms dichotomous beliefs, untrue beliefs, dogmatic beliefs, which play out as theater, such as confusion or rigid behaviors or rigid ways of thinking. Yet, when the individual releases identification to those untrue beliefs, the unreal beliefs, bliss is experienced unconditionally and God does everything. What do I mean by that? Well, in the Bhagavad Gita, it states that soul doership is an illusion, as in the individual thinking that they do everything themselves is an illusion. The individual, maybe through their beliefs, tries to control things. Yet, they may control it in a way that's not actually helpful for them. A practical example would be in consulting. I've consulted for many years. I have made flow a priority, which is what we're going to talk about. And as a result of making flow a priority and restoring mind to its childlike, fluid state of bliss. I remember one time we had two companies. One of the companies said, we have to do it this one way. The other company said, we have to do it this other way. And they appeared to be in conflict. And so they asked me what to do. And I said, the answer is depends. And they said, what do you mean? And one company was giving me many reasons as to why they should do it their way. The other company was giving me many reasons why they should do it the other way. Yet it wasn't harmonious because they wanted to have a partnership together. And so I said, how about this? And an idea just arose in mind, just like that. From God, the idea arose in mind. It appeared in mind. And I said, let's do a variation. Why does it need to be this way or that way? Can it be a variation? And if you choose not to do a variation, here's another way, here's another way, here's another way. And they said, how do you come up with these ideas? I said, you can come up with these ideas. I access these ideas from the same source. It is only rigidity in mind that generates illusions of separation from the source from which all right ideas arise from. It says, the no mind is placed nowhere. Yet it is not like wood or stone. Where there is no stopping place, it is called no mind. When it stops, there is something in the mind. When there is nothing in the mind, it is called the mind of no mind, or this is also referred to in Japanese, mushin no shin. Mind without mind. It says it is also called no mind, no thought. So there are moments where I recommend being still, allowing the right thought to arise in mind without identifying with the untrue beliefs of forcing it to go one way or another, even though through the reactivity, the individual knows that it's not helpful for them. This is related to what we discussed in Tuesday's video. I'll link in the description to it. I give up to God. Give up to God. It says, when this no mind has been well developed, the mind does not stop with one thing, nor does it lack any one thing. It is like water overflowing and exists within itself. It appears appropriately when facing a time of need, and that's the key. It appears appropriately when facing a time of need. So, to experience no mind, which is the unfettered mind, let's explore what Taekwondo Soho also shared. He said, the mind must always be in the state of flowing. So again, the mind must always be in the state of flowing. For when it stops anywhere, that means the flow is interrupted. And it's apparent. It's crystal clear to the individual. It is apparent in the words, what they say, that they are not using the two gifts wisely. It says the mind must always be in a state of flowing. For when it stops anywhere, that means the flow is interrupted. And it is this interruption that is injurious to the well-being of the mind. So, if the individual has been identified with dichotomous thinking, black and white thinking, thinking that is generating confusion in mind, or if they appear to force themselves to do things that they genuinely don't desire to do, and their communication is one of rigid ways of thinking, they can benefit from making flow a priority. I created a flow-based life series. I'll link in the description to it. I created a mastermind called Flow-Based Prosperity. We do 2 Zoom sessions a week, which is built on the foundation of making flow a priority and reaping the benefits of fluidity of mind, since I prioritized it in 2017. Prior to that, I was doing it once in a while. See, in 2017, I was in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. I was away for 2 weeks. I maybe went to the beach, went to the gym, met up with friends. Those were moments where I was experiencing bliss. Yet there were other moments where I was not experiencing bliss. And I asked myself the question, when was I the most joyous? When was I the most blissful, happiness-based, love-based, fulfillment-based, peace-based? And the answer arose in mind. It was while I was in flow state. I then took an inventory, and I discovered the different areas of life where I experience bliss with. And I put 2 and 2 together, and I said, this is my true nature. Bliss is my true nature. And I experience bliss doing these particular activities. Thus, it means that these activities are genuinely what I desire to do. What if I just make flow a priority? And that's what I did. In 2017, I made flow a priority. And as I continued to make flow a priority, something interesting happened at a particular point, which we could also say physiological changes within, neurological changes within as a result of making flow a priority. Mind remained fluid. And practically speaking, in my consulting, creative solutions, left, right, and center. In relationships, the precise statements of what to say, what not to say naturally arose in mind. Intuition, crystal clear. When I'm consuming information, my attention automatically goes to what is in harmony and in contribution to the vision. And so there's no confusion. Now, while we're in flow, a number of neurotransmitters are released. I recommend my flow-based life series. I'll link in the description. So the way to unfetter the mind, the best way that I found was to make flow a priority. Now, one of the neurotransmitters that is released while you're in flow state is called anandamide. The word anandamide comes from the Sanskrit word ananda, which means bliss. This is the bliss molecule. The bliss molecule has been known to facilitate lateral thinking, fluidity of mind. What do I mean by that? Well, divergent thinking is thinking of many possible solutions, coming up with creative ideas, which is wonderful and very helpful. Convergent thinking is thinking of applying well-established solutions. So let's say in a business A always did things in one way. And when I ask them, why do you do it? They say, well, we've always done it that way. Because it worked for them in the past, yet things have changed. They can benefit from some divergent thinking. Now, they had conversations with people who shared with them divergent thinking-based ideas. But they resisted it. Why did they resist it? Because they were identified with those particular beliefs. And as a result of the cognitive bias from those particular beliefs, they were only seeking for validation, for confirmation to those particular beliefs. And even if the information was helpful for them, they didn't think that way. So what did I do? Well, what I did was prioritize my own flow, be in flow, so that I could be experiencing lateral thinking. I refer to this as lateral being, as it's an integration of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Now, anandamide is released, and the individual experiences bliss, fluidity of mind, mind without mind, a mind in a state of flowing. And as we engage in conversation, something fascinating happens. All of a sudden, they start listening to creative ideas. They also appear to come up with creative ideas. I say, where do you get them from? They say, I don't know. Well, we're all drawing from the same source. That's the mastermind, as articulated in the mastermind principle in Think and Grow Rich. When a mastermind is facilitated from the sure foundation of reality being bliss, it manifests mentally, emotionally, physically as harmonious relationships, harmonious conversations, where everybody draws from the source. So before, they were not appearing to entertain divergent or creative ideas. Why is it now they're entertaining these ideas and also applying them? Well, it's because they're in their flow now. It's crystal clear. They are in their flow. And how do I know? Because one of the things that I do when I have these conversations is I like to ask people how they feel, describe how they feel. And they give me clues. I say, would you say that you feel love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment? They say, yeah, something like that. Or, yeah, that is what I feel. Bliss is what I feel. So, mind in a state of flowing, which is the unfettered mind, is where a person experiences clarity. Ideas, hunches, inspirations are received within from the source. While mind is in its natural, fluid state, and it's also mind purifying. Why do I say that? Because awareness is brought to the beliefs that they may be identified with, that perhaps were once helpful, yet they were rigid. and they release them. Now, as the individual continues to release these untrue, unreal beliefs, what is experienced? Reality. What is reality? God. What is the true nature of reality? Bliss. Experientially, harmonious relationship with people, environment, circumstance, information, all by making flow a priority. So again, let's go back to the beginning here. Only God is real. God is reality. What is the true nature of reality? Bliss. How do we know that the true nature of reality is bliss? Well, you can also ask the questions, as I've asked the questions. How do you feel now that we're having these conversations? And they say, I feel like myself. So this is what I mean by always go right to the end and live from reality. As Adi Shankara had said, one should know oneself to be of the true nature of existence, consciousness, bliss. Bliss is the one true reality of God, which is in a complete state of bliss. Thus, to imagine otherwise, and why would the individual imagine otherwise? Well, they might not know of the effects of imagining otherwise. But those effects can become apparent as they experience it in confusion in mind, emotional reactivity, manifestations of identification to those untrue beliefs, which are illusory realities in mind, manifested as appearances of suffering, and also can appear as temptations that point away from bliss, illusions that appear to suggest that bliss is not true nature, which is an illusion. So, practically speaking, the way we apply this is to make flow a priority. What you could do right now, is take an inventory like I did in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and ask yourself the question, where do I experience bliss? Certainly, you can experience it everywhere. Yet, if the individual is, we could say, stuck in their head as a result of their rigid thinking, and no matter how much they appear to think more and more so, they continue to not experience bliss. It could be very helpful to just engage in one flow-based activity that you know is a flow-based activity that is easy for you to experience flow in. For me, it's conversations with people. For me, it's snowboarding, spontaneous travel. And as you continue to prioritize flow-based activities where you experience bliss, mind becomes fluid and you experience bliss even in activities where you never experienced bliss before. Thus, you experience unconditional bliss. You experience the true nature of reality anywhere and everywhere. And that's it. That's all it is. It's a integrated approach, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. Otherwise, what I've seen is individuals trying to think their way out of the challenge, when, as mentioned, at times it can be helpful, and at times not so much. The answer is it depends. And you know when it's not working. If you get the same illusory, unblissful results again, and again, and the individual does not experience consistently reality, bliss, which is the true nature of reality, rather generating more and more illusory realities in mind and continuing to be stuck in their head. When the simple step is just do the thing that you love to do. So this is key. I recommend not trying to overthink yourself out of a situation, but rather be in bliss. Be as you are. And do whatever that brings you into your bliss. As Joseph Campbell said one time, follow your bliss. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I make flow a priority as I know that I am bliss. I choose life experiences that are naturally blissful. Following my bliss, living from the premise of truth. I am bliss, Satchit Ananda. As I remain as I am, I experience bliss more and more so everywhere I appear. As everywhere I appear to experience bliss, fluidity of mind, my natural state of mind, the result of prioritizing bliss. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.